I grew up thinking my family was unbreakable. My mom and dad had this love story that everyone envied, the kind where they still held hands in the grocery store, the kind where my dad would slow dance with her in the kitchen while dinner burned on the stove. I was their only child, their miracle baby after years of trying. So when I say I felt special, I mean it in a way that's hard to explain. I wasn't just loved, I was treasured. We lived in a white colonial house on Maple Street in Naperville, Illinois. Big porch, American flag on a post, a golden retriever named Daisy who slept at the foot of my bed every night. My dad was a high school principal, respected, calm, the kind of man who never raised his voice. My mom was a real estate agent, sharp, funny. She had this laugh that filled up a whole room. I never once doubted that they had my back, not once, until the night they didn't. I was 23 years old, fresh out of college with a degree in marketing that felt more like an expensive piece of paper than a future. I'd moved back home because the economy was a nightmare, and my entry-level job at a small agency paid $38,000 a year. Not enough for rent in Chicago, not even close. So I lived in my childhood bedroom with my college posters still on the walls and Daisy sleeping on my feet, just like old times. My boyfriend at the time was named Connor. We'd been together since junior year of college. He was tall and quiet with glasses and a smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the world. He worked in finance downtown and wore suits that made him look older than 24. My parents adored him. My mom called him the son she never had. My dad took him golfing every other Saturday. Connor fit into our family like he'd been there all along. I thought we were going to get married. We'd talked about it, looked at rings once when we were tipsy after a wedding. He said he wanted to wait until he got his bonus. I said okay, because I trusted him. That was my mistake. Trusting someone who was already pulling away without telling me. It started small. Connor working late more often, texting less, the way he'd pull his phone close to his chest when I walked into the room. I asked him about it once, and he said work was stressful. His boss was writing him about a big deal. I believed him, because that's what you do when you love someone. You believe the easy explanation. You ignore the knot in your stomach, because unraveling it might ruin everything. The knot got bigger. One night in early March, I was at my parents' house, making dinner. Chicken parmesan. Connor was supposed to come over at 7. He texted at 6:45 saying he got held up. That was fine. I put his plate in the oven to keep it warm. 8 o'clock came, then 9. I called him twice. No answer. I texted him, and he replied with a single word. Sorry. Not sorry for being late. Just sorry.
Like an apology for existing. My mom came into the kitchen in her robe. She saw my face and sat down across from me. She asked what was wrong. I told her nothing. She didn't believe me. Moms never do. He's just busy, I said. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said something I'll never forget. Busy isn't the same as distant, baby. Don't confuse the two. I should have listened to her then, but I didn't. I told her she was worrying over nothing. I told her Connor loved me. I said those words like saying them loud enough would make them true. The next weekend, Connor and I went to a party in Logan Square. A friend of his from work named Trevor was hosting. Trevor lived in a converted loft with exposed brick and a rooftop deck that overlooked the city. It was the kind of place that made me feel like I was playing dress-up in someone else's life. Everyone there was older, more successful. Women in designer boots talking about closing deals. Men in expensive watches who laughed too loud at their own jokes. I wore a green dress that Connor said he liked. He held my hand when we walked in. For a few hours, things felt normal. He brought me drinks. He kept his arm around my waist. I started to relax. I started to think the knot in my stomach was just anxiety, just me being insecure. Then I went to the bathroom. The bathroom was down a narrow hallway past the kitchen. The door didn't lock properly, so I held it shut with my foot. When I came out, I heard voices from the kitchen. I recognized Connor's laugh, the soft one he used when he was trying to be charming. He laughed differently when he was actually amused. This was his performance laugh. I stopped walking. A woman's voice followed, low and smooth. She said something I couldn't quite catch. Then Connor spoke again. His words were clear this time, too clear.
She has no idea. She thinks we're fine. It's almost sad, honestly. The woman laughed, soft, knowing. Then she said, "Will you know what they say? Ignorance is bliss." I stood in that hallway for what felt like an hour, but was probably 10 seconds. My brain couldn't process what I just heard. The voice belonged to someone I didn't recognize. Not a friend, not a coworker I knew. Just a woman. Just another woman. I walked into the kitchen like nothing happened. Connor was leaning against the counter with a glass of whiskey in his hand. Across from him stood a woman with dark hair and red lips, and a black dress that cost more than my rent. She looked at me like I was furniture. Connor's face went pale for just a second. Then he smiled. "Hey babe, this is Vanessa. She works in the legal department. We're on the same deal." Vanessa extended a hand. Her nails were long and perfect. I shook it anyway. Her grip was cold and brief. "Nice to meet you," she said. "Connor talks about you all the time." The way she said it made me want to scream, like I was a joke she was in on.
Like Connor and I were characters in some story she'd already heard the ending to. I smiled back, the same smile I'd been practicing my whole life, the one that said I'm fine even when I'm not. That night in the car, Connor asked if I was okay. I said yes. He asked if I was sure. I said yes again. He didn't push. He turned up the radio and sang along to a song I hated. I stared out the window at the lights of the highway and felt something in my chest crack. Just a little, just enough to know it was there. I spent the next 2 weeks pretending. I went to work. I answered Connor's texts. I smiled at my parents. But inside, I was digging. I checked his Instagram followers. I looked at Vanessa's profile. He'd given it to me 6 months earlier, with a smile and a promise that it was a step toward living together. When I got there, his car was in the parking garage, but his apartment was dark. I used the key and walked inside. Everything looked normal. Dishes in the sink, a basketball game paused on the TV. I sat on his couch and waited. An hour passed, then another. I texted him at 9. "Where are you?" He replied at 9:15. "Working late. Love you." I stared at those 2 words. Love you. 2 words that had meant everything to me for 3 years. Now they felt like a transaction, like a button he pressed to keep me quiet. At 10:30, I heard keys in the lock. The door opened and Connor walked in, with Vanessa right behind him. They were laughing. Her hand was on his chest. Neither of them saw me at first because the lights were off. I was just a shape on the couch, a piece of furniture they hadn't noticed. Then Connor flicked the switch. The overhead light came on and everything went still. Vanessa's hand dropped. Connor's face went through about 5 emotions in 2 seconds. Confusion, shock, fear, and then something worse. Annoyance. Like I was the one who had done something wrong. "What are you doing here?" he said. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "This isn't what it looks like." Just, "What are you doing here?" I stood up. My legs were shaking, but my voice was steady. "I live 40 minutes away, Connor. I drove here because I wanted to see my boyfriend." "But you're not my boyfriend, are you?" "You're someone else's." Vanessa looked at him. Her eyes were wide, but not scared, more like embarrassed, like she'd been caught in a lie that wasn't worth the trouble. Connor ran a hand through his hair, that nervous gesture I used to find endearing. Now it just looked weak. "Look, I can explain," he said. I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Explain what?" "Explain that you've been sleeping with your coworker while telling me you loved me. Explain that you talk about me like I'm pathetic to the woman you're cheating with. Explain which part, Connor, because I honestly want to know." Vanessa spoke up. She said I didn't know he had a girlfriend. And I looked at her and said, "He didn't. Did he? He told you we were done? Or he told you I was crazy? Or he told you I was just some girl he was stuck with? Which story did he sell you, Vanessa?" She didn't answer. She just grabbed her purse from the floor and walked out. Connor didn't stop her. He didn't even look at her.
He looked at me. "I'm sorry," he said. That was it? 2 years of lies and late nights and making me feel like I was losing my mind, and all he had was "I'm sorry." I asked him how long. He said 6 months. 6 months of coming home to my parents' house and kissing me goodnight after spending the day with her. 6 months of looking my dad in the eye and talking about the future. 6 months of my mother calling him family. I took off the necklace he gave me for our 2-year anniversary. A thin gold chain with a tiny star. I dropped it on his coffee table. Then I walked out and drove home, crying so hard I had to pull over twice on the highway. I got back to my parents' house around 1 in the morning. The lights were off. I let myself in through the garage and tried to be quiet, but my mom heard me. She was already in the kitchen when I walked in. Her hair was messy and her robe was tied tight around her waist. She looked at my face and she knew. "What happened?" she said. I told her. Everything. The party, the kitchen, the way he said, "She has no idea." Vanessa, the 6 months. I told her while standing in the middle of the kitchen with the refrigerator humming behind me. My voice cracked a few times, but I didn't cry. I was too tired to cry. Too empty. My mom listened without interrupting. When I finished, she walked over and hugged me, tight, the way she used to when I was little and I fell off my bike. Then she pulled back and looked me in the eye. "You're going to be okay," she said, "but you can't stay here forever. You need to figure out your next move." I thought she meant emotionally. I said, "I know. I'll figure it out." The next morning, my dad came downstairs while I was eating cereal. He sat across from me and folded his hands on the table. He said, "Your mom told me about Connor. I'm sorry, sweetheart. That's a hard thing to go through." I nodded. I expected comfort. I expected him to say Connor was an idiot, which he was. But instead, he said something else. "Your mom and I have been talking. We love you, you know that. But we think it's time you started standing on your own 2 feet. You're 23. You've been home for almost a year. And with everything that's happened, we think some distance might be good for everyone." I put down my spoon. "What does that mean?" I asked. He looked at my mom, who had just walked into the kitchen. She had her real estate face on, the one she used with difficult clients. Professional, kind, untouchable. "We think you should move out," she said. "Not because we don't love you, but because you need to learn how to survive without a safety net. Connor was a safety net. We are a safety net. And right now you need to find out who you are when the net isn't there." I stared at her, my own mother, the woman who held my hand through every breakup, every failure, every bad day. And she was telling me to leave. "Where am I supposed to go?" I asked. "I have $38,000 a year. I can't afford rent in Chicago. I can't even afford rent in Naperville." My mom shrugged. "That's for you to figure out. That's the point." I looked at my dad for help. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He just stared at his coffee cup like it held the secrets of the universe. "You're serious," I said. "We are," my mom said. "We want you out by the end of the month." The end of the month. That was 3 weeks away. 3 weeks to find an apartment I couldn't afford in a city I barely knew outside of my college bubble. 3 weeks to pack up my childhood bedroom and leave the only home I'd ever known. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I just stood up from the table and walked upstairs. I closed my bedroom door and sat on my bed with Daisy's head in my lap. And I thought about Connor, about the 6 months he stole from me, about the way he laughed about my trust like it was nothing. And then I thought about my parents, the people who were supposed to catch me when I fell. But they weren't catching me. They were pushing me. I spent the next 2 weeks in a fog. I went to work, I came home, I packed boxes while my mom watched TV downstairs like nothing was happening. My dad started avoiding me. He'd leave for work early and come home late. Our conversations became grunts and nods. The house felt colder than it ever had. I found a room for rent on Craigslist, a converted attic in a house in Rogers Park. $700 a month, utilities included. The landlord was a 60-year-old woman named Terrell, who chain-smoked on her porch and had 3 cats. The The room was small. The ceiling sloped so low I hit my head every morning. But it was mine. Or it would be. The weekend before I was supposed to move, I came home from a friend's house and found my mom standing in the hallway outside my bedroom. She was holding a box of my things. Photographs, old journals, a stuffed animal I'd had since I was 5. "You need to get these packed," she said. Her voice was flat, efficient. I said, "I know. I'll do it tonight."
She shook her head. "No, you'll do it now. We're not a storage unit. We're not a hotel. If you're moving out, then move out." Something in me broke. Not the quiet crack from before. Something loud and final. I looked at my mother and I asked her why. "Why are you doing this to me? I just got cheated on. I just lost my boyfriend. I just found out my entire relationship was a lie. And instead of helping me, you're throwing me out." She set the box down on the floor. Her jaw was tight. "You think you're the only one who's been lied to?" she said. I didn't understand. "What are you talking about?" My mom crossed her arms. "Your father and I have been having problems for years. Problems you never noticed because you were too busy with your own life. Connor wasn't the only one keeping secrets." I felt the floor drop out from under me. "What secrets?" I said. She laughed, but it wasn't her real laugh. It was hard and bitter. "Your father had an affair. 3 years ago. With the school secretary. I found out because I went through his phone one night when he was in the shower. I confronted him. He denied it. Then I showed him the screenshots and he cried like a baby. Begged me not to leave. Promised it was over. I couldn't breathe. My dad? The man who slow danced with my mom in the kitchen? The man who never raised his voice? He had an affair? Why are you telling me this now?" I whispered. "Because," my mom said, "I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of playing the happy family when I've been miserable for 3 years. I stayed with him because I was scared. Scared of being alone. Scared of what people would say. Scared of starting over at 52. But watching you fall apart over Connor made me realize something. I don't want you to make the same mistakes I did. I don't want you to stay small because you're scared. So yes, I'm throwing you out. Not because I don't love you, but because I love you too much to watch you hide in this house like I did." I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream at her for keeping this from me, for letting me believe our family was perfect when it was falling apart. But all I felt was tired. So incredibly tired. I packed the rest of my things that night. My dad stayed in his home office. My mom went to bed. Daisy lay on the floor watching me with sad dog eyes. I finished at 2 in the morning. 7 boxes, 2 suitcases, a laundry basket full of shoes. The next morning I loaded everything into my car, a 2015 Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door. My mom came outside while I was struggling with a box of books. She didn't offer to help. She just stood on the front porch with her arms crossed against the cold. "Don't contact us," she said. I froze. "What?" She said. "You heard me. Don't call. Don't text. Don't come by. We need time. You need time. Figure out your life, and when you've figured it out, maybe we'll talk." I looked at my mother's face. The same face that kissed my scraped knees and cheered at my graduation and cried when I left for college. Now it was stone. Unreadable. "Fine," I said, and I got in my car and drove away. Rogers Park was a different world, far from Naperville's manicured lawns and friendly waves. My street was loud, sirens at all hours, neighbors who yelled at each other from their windows. Carol, my landlord, smoked on the porch every morning and told me stories about her dead husband while her cats circled my ankles. My room was 8 feet by 10 feet. A bed, a desk, a closet the size of a coffin. The bathroom was downstairs and shared with 2 other renters, a nursing student named Jenna who was never home, and a 40-year-old guy named Mike who played video games until 3 in the morning and shouted at his screen in Korean. I hated it, every single second of it, but I didn't have a choice. The first week was the hardest. I came home from work every night and sat on my bed and stared at the wall. I didn't have a TV. I didn't have internet except what I could steal from the coffee shop downstairs. I ate ramen and peanut butter sandwiches because that's all I could afford after rent and my car payment. I thought about my mom constantly. Her words echoed in my head. Don't contact us. She meant it. I checked my phone every hour for the first few days. No calls, no texts, nothing. I was alone in a way I'd never been alone before. The second week I got angry. Not at Connor anymore. He wasn't worth the energy.
I got angry at my parents, at my dad for his affair and his cowardice, at my mom for keeping it secret and then punishing me for her own unhappiness. I got angry at myself for being so blind, for believing in things that weren't real. Anger was better than sadness. Anger moved. Anger did things. I started looking for a better job. I updated my resume. I applied to 20 positions in 2 days. I tailored every cover letter. I reached out to old professors and college friends. I networked like my life depended on it, because honestly, it did. On the 18th day of living in Carol's attic, I got a call. A marketing coordinator position at a tech startup in the West Loop. The pay was $52,000. Not amazing, but enough. Enough to find a better place. Enough to breathe. I went to the interview in the only blazer I owned, a navy blue thing from H&M that smelled like the thrift store I bought it from. I sat in a glass conference room across from a woman named Priya who had purple hair and a nose ring and asked me questions that actually made me think, not the usual "where do you see yourself in 5 years" nonsense. She asked me about failure, about what I learned from being wrong, about a time I had to rebuild something from nothing. I told her about Connor, not the cheating, the aftermath. I told her about my parents throwing me out, about living in a sloped attic with a chain-smoking landlord, about having no safety net for the first time in my life. I told her how I woke up every morning and chose to keep going, even when I didn't want to. She offered me the job on the spot. I cried in my car after that interview. Not sad tears, not happy tears either. Something in between. Something like relief. Like maybe I wasn't as broken as I thought. The new job changed things. Not overnight, but fast. I had more money, I had purpose, I had coworkers who became friends, people my age who didn't know about Connor or my parents, or any of the wreckage I'd left behind. To them, I was just Claire, the new girl, the one who showed up early and stayed late and never complained about the coffee runs. I found a studio apartment in Uptown. Small, but mine. No roommates, no shared bathroom, a kitchen with a window that faced east so I could watch the sunrise while I drank my coffee. The first night I slept there, I lay on the floor in the middle of the empty room and listened to the silence. No crying, no yelling, no sirens, just me and my heartbeat. I bought furniture from IKEA, a bed, a table, 2 chairs, a lamp shaped like a mushroom that made me smile every time I looked at it. I hung photos on the walls, not photos of my family, photos of the city, the lake, a print of a painting I'd loved since college. I made the space mine in a way I'd never made anything mine before. 3 months passed. I didn't contact my parents. They didn't contact me. I thought about them every day, but the thoughts changed shape over time. At first, they were sharp, knives in my chest. Then they became dull, aches I could live with. And finally, they became something like background noise, present but not overwhelming. I started dating again, casually, nothing serious. A guy from work named Derek who took me to a dive bar and made me laugh so hard I snorted beer out of my nose. A woman I met at a concert named Sam who kissed me on the sidewalk and made me feel things I didn't know I could feel. Nothing stuck, but nothing needed to. I was learning what I wanted, who I was when no one was watching. The biggest change came on a random Tuesday in October. I was walking home from the train when I saw a flyer taped to a lamppost. Community theater auditions, a production of a play I'd loved in high school. I stood there for a full minute reading the words. I'd never acted before, not seriously, but something in the flyer called to me, a voice that said, why not? Why not do something scary? Why not do something just for you? I auditioned. I was terrible. I forgot my lines. I tripped over the edge of the stage. The director, a patient woman named Ellen, smiled at me and said, thank you for trying. I didn't get a part, but I showed up, and that mattered more than I expected. The next month, I auditioned again for a different play,
A smaller production, a black box theater with only 50 seats. I got a small role, 2 scenes, 6 lines. I practiced in my apartment every night until my neighbor banged on the wall. On opening night, I stood in the wings and felt my heart pound against my ribs. And then I walked on stage and said my lines, and the audience laughed exactly when they were supposed to. After the show, a woman came up to me. She had gray hair and kind eyes, and she told me I was wonderful, that she could feel my truth in every word. I thanked her and walked back to my apartment in the cold October air and realized I was happy. Not pretending happy, not eventually happy, actually happy, right there in that moment. 6 months after my mom threw me out, I got an email. Subject line, just my name, Claire. I opened it. It was from my dad. Your mom is sick. Nothing life-threatening, but she's been in the hospital for a week. She didn't want me to tell you, but I thought you deserved to know. No love you, no please come home, just facts. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I closed my laptop and went to work. That night, I sat on my mushroom lamp-lit living room floor and thought about my mom, the way she looked on the porch that morning, the hardness in her voice when she said, "Don't contact us." I thought about her affair revelation, her confession of staying with my dad out of fear. I thought about her pushing me away, not because she didn't love me, but because she didn't want me to become her. I didn't know if that made it better or worse. I decided to call her. Not because I forgave her. Not because I was ready. But because I was tired of the silence. Tired of the space between us that had grown so wide I couldn't see the other side. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Hello," she said. Her voice was smaller than I remembered. Thinner. "Hi, Mom," I said. "I heard you were in the hospital." A long pause. Then she said, "Your dad shouldn't have told you." "Well, he did," I said. "Are you okay?" She sighed. "I'm fine. It was a scare. My blood pressure. The doctor said I need to rest more. Stop drinking so much coffee. Your father is driving me crazy with the monitoring." I almost laughed. Almost. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us holding phones to our ears, both of us remembering the porch, the boxes, the words that changed everything. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "For what?" I asked. "For all of it. For throwing you out. For the way I did it. For keeping your father's secret. For making you feel like you were the problem when you weren't." I closed my eyes. "Thank you," I said. "Are you okay? Really okay?" I looked around my studio apartment, at the mushroom lamp, at the photos on the wall, at the copy of the play script on my coffee table, at the life I had built from nothing.
and then we hung up. That was 2 years ago. My mom and I are not the same. We probably never will be. The trust is different now. Less automatic, more chosen. I visit a few times a year. My dad is still there, still quiet, still avoiding my eyes when the conversation gets too real. My mom goes to therapy now. She's learning to be honest, learning to ask for what she needs. Connor tried to text me last year, a long rambling message about how he messed up, how Vanessa dumped him, how he missed me. I read it and felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, just nothing. I deleted it and blocked his number. The girl who lived in her parents' house on Maple Street is gone. The girl who trusted the wrong people and stayed quiet when she should have screamed is gone. I changed everything overnight, but not really. It took months of bad days and small wins, of ramen dinners and audition rejections, of learning to sit with silence and not be afraid. My mom threw me out and said, "Don't contact us." And for a while I didn't. But eventually I found my way back. Not to the family I thought I had, to something realer, messier, more honest. I still live in my studio apartment in Uptown. I still have the mushroom lamp. I got a promotion last spring. I audition for plays whenever I can. I have friends who feel like family. I have a life that I built with my own 2 hands. And every morning when I make my coffee, I look out my east-facing window at the sun coming up over the city. And I remember that night in the kitchen, the way Connor laughed about my trust, the way my mom looked on the porch, the way my dad couldn't meet my eyes. I remember it all, but it doesn't hurt the way it used to. Now it just reminds me of how far I've come. Some people break when they lose everything. I didn't. I bent. I cracked. I fell apart in ways I'm still finding pieces of. But I never stopped moving. I never stopped choosing myself, even when it was hard. That's the thing about overnight changes. They never really happen overnight. They happen in the small moments, the quiet decisions, the mornings you get out of bed when you'd rather disappear, the nights you cry yourself to sleep and wake up anyway. My mom threw me out, and I thank her for it now. Not because she was right, but because she forced me to become someone I actually like. And that girl in the green dress at the party in Logan Square, the one who heard her boyfriend laugh about her trust and said nothing, she's a stranger to me now. I don't recognize her anymore. I'm glad I don't.